Welcome, everybody, to an episode of Doctor Who in Review, presented by Nisha M., your geek mom, and myself, Louis Lacal, with a very special guest, Jyoti from Diversely Geek. And, of course, let's start off. Let's do a little intro. Jyoti, just a little quorum about yourself.
It's funny because we joked last week that I'm not really a guest star anymore. I'm weekly. But yeah, just, we're the team. For me, Diversely Geek. We have been on this process now for the last, my gosh, can you believe it's already been like 2 full months?
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's like 2 more episodes left.
I know, that's so sad.
I'm
so saddened by that.
But then we're going to be able to talk more about like the characters that we have and really flush out a lot of the characters after these episodes are done, because then we could start really delving deep into these episodes and go.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Minutia,
Yep.
And that's going to be really fun. So let's go straight into this episode because, we just finished watching it. And, Nisha, what are your first thoughts on this?
Oh, of course. You do this to me all the time.
Always. Hey,
always.
You gotta think on the fly. Come on.
Well, I watched it yesterday live. And it was interesting because I did a lot of rewinding as the show was going on.
I did too, actually.
Yeah. It's because, okay. So I'm going to be a split viewer on this show. I find that I feel like 3 different ways. Like, one portion of me, 33%, is just loves the Doctor. Loves the enthusiasm and the angst and at the same time, this motherly persona, maternal persona in a sense. Whether the Doctor would have been male or female didn't matter, because in this moment, there's a paternal feeling to me. And the relationship that that the Doctor is building with King James is really interesting. But the quotes from this episode are stupendous.
Oh, fantastic. And including that little quirm that Graham says at the very end, the little Tarantino quote unquote. It was great.
It was. It really is. And then Ryan has some beautiful verbiage in here, and his interaction with King James was so unexpected and refreshing, actually, even to him, because Tosin acts it as being dumbfounded, so that's cool.
Personally, it kind of felt like King James was like enamored.
Oh, he was.
With Ryan.
I think
he was totally hitting on him.
And Ryan was very much oblivious.
Oblivious.
It was hilarious. He was so oblivious.
And Graham's faces were priceless. He was just like, really, kid? You don't understand what's going on?
I love at the end, their faces, yes, and Graham, when he asked Ryan to go with him to London, they both were like, eyebrows raised and smiling and like, uh-huh. What are you going to say? It was so cute.
It was so hilarious. There were parts of it that were the story, like there were lulls in the story. Even though it was actionable and it kept moving, there are things about this monster or villain. I just was like, bleh, whatever.
They didn't flesh it out. They didn't flesh it out,
man. I felt like it was truly, honestly, I felt like it was almost like a throwaway. There was a lot that could have been said or could have been done with it earlier on. Like they should have started way earlier instead of paying so much attention to Becca as Becca.
Yeah.
I think that there was so much more they could have done with these villains.
That was a little misguided. I agree.
Yeah, totally.
I think every season has to have like not necessarily a throwaway, but that one episode. And I think for this season, it's probably going to end up being this one. And the thing is, it's nothing that was like really done bad or poorly. It was just, I think, the generic story and like the background into it, the depth of it, just did not match anything
Yeah.
of the rest of the season. It's funny because I looked at this. This was very much like a normal Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
So it with everything that we've been getting this season, it kind of felt like it did fall a little flat. But that just actually shows us how amazing this season has been.
But it's a different writer, no?
Yeah.
So, I think even a different director. I may be wrong about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the director was a first time, but yeah, I mean, there was something kind of, I can't pinpoint it. My attention was not grabbed from the beginning, and that's why I kept rewinding. There was something about it that just my mind was wandering a lot in the episode, and I haven't had an episode like that this season. But honestly, like you said, Joe, every season has at least one or two episodes that your mind kind of wanders in the episode. You're enjoying it, it's fun, but your mind kind of wanders, and it's kind of background noise episode, which this was actually a good version of that, and they did a decent job with it. It didn't have heavy-handed message. It didn't have a message that was coming across. There's nothing really like profound like we've been seeing in the last episodes. There was moments, but they've had better episodes that had the same moments in it.
I mean, they are talking about self-confidence and the ability to not adapt the herd mentality. Same philosophy in a sense as even last week. I mean, I think if that's a running theme. You know how I'm always finding a running theme? You know, like if you notice, I've been doing that, and I was thinking that every episode is telling us, hey, you know, don't just go with the flow of negativity. Go ahead and find your own thought processes. Go ahead and think for yourself. And that's the conversation that the Doctor's having with King James. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because she's like, you know, I recognize you want to be brilliant, and your self-acclaimed brilliance is not if you're the one who's saying you're brilliant.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's but I believe you could be if you just listen to your heart and act more ethically, I guess. You know, and it's interesting because Alan Cummings is just brilliant.
Oh yeah,
my God,
fantastic in the episode.
Oh my God,
you know, that's probably one of the saving graces of it, that the fact that it was him playing that role. If it was for lack of a better word, a mediocre actor, I think this episode would have fallen even shorter than it did already with us.
Yeah.
But honestly, like
it was very fascinating.
Yeah, I compare it to the Shakespeare Code. When the Doctor meets Shakespeare, I felt that same kind of vibe, that kind of like vibing between these two historical figures, because that's and it was so good. It was interesting. That part of it was 100% what kept me.
100%. The strength of the episode is Alan Cummings with the Doctor and Alan Cummings with Ryan.
Yeah, especially Ryan.
I'm just saying. And I believe that, you know, Graham and Yaz both have their perspectives, and Yaz is the, you know, the big sister, the person trying to take care of someone else. She again is very maternal and a protector and a nurturer of herself, and
Graham is too. It's really interesting, but Graham is very much it's funny because I feel like they all represent like different stages of like well, they all have completely different relationships with the Doctor. It's really funny because Yaz kind of like they all follow the Doctor 100%. I feel like of the three of them, Yaz is the one that's a little bit more rebellious against whatever, like not in a bad way, but like if the Doctor says, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this, Yaz will be like, yeah, but we can, maybe, let's do it. Graham very much follows whatever the Doctor says, and
yeah, right.
And
the Doctor did say this,
and Ryan will be like, yeah, okay, but like he'll put a little bit of a question into it.
I agree. I think that Graham kind of, I think he knows how to like sort of basically go and allow the woman in charge, because let's be real, us guys, we kind of follow what the women say. Let's be real about that, for the most part. And a lot of times that's it. Graham falls into that category because he knows that the doctor is right, and he knows that she's not going to misguide him. So I think that's why he defaults to yeah, let's follow the doctor, because she hasn't been wrong yet. So
Definitely. It's really refreshing, honestly, to see three different completely different perspectives that still that don't clash at all.
no, at all.
Because in the past, whenever we've had multiple companions, it's always as if they contradict each other in personality and in their interactions with the doctor.
I think we're going to keep harkening back to, I think, the first actual season of Doctor Who with Hartnell. This is how the Doctor's companions were at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the reason I'm able to do that connection is because I'm re-watching it from the beginning, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm watching this season, and I'm like, this is exactly the same. this is what I'm watching. You know, they are who they are already. That's exactly how the companions were when they first started in the show, and they all play their crucial role. They balance each other out well. The episodes aren't centered around each of the one single companion the whole time. It's each one has its own little adventures. Each one has their own little forte that they concentrate on, and the Doctor teaches each one of them. Even in the grouchy Hartnell era, the Doctor was actually teaching the companions something, and this is the same. I mean, Jodie Whittaker is doing the same thing. She's actually making these people better by being around her, and that's phenomenal. And that's one of the things that I love about the Doctor, is that she's not just a role model, but she's the authority figure and the person that gets things done, but teaches everybody how to do the same thing. She teaches free will, which is phenomenal.
Well, yeah, and that's what we're seeing, the interactions. But it's not just the Doctor, right? Yaz is doing that also with Willa, yeah?
Yeah.
And even in a sense with Becca, because they're both saying, hey, Becca, you don't have to fall in line with whatever this, because this is before they know who Becca is and what Becca's doing, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, you don't have to fall in line with this philosophy of persecution. You can step outside of it and you can try and find your own truth. Why do you have to persecute everyone? But of course, in the end, we figure out why. Yeah. It was all about protecting Becca, which was just horrible. That was horrible. Ugh.
Yeah,
what
that
a
was
concept,
rough.
man. What a concept. So let's run through the episode, I think, from beginning to the end, because it does have a storyline that kind of is linear in a sense.
It is.
I mean, because we fall into is it Lancashire?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we're gonna start from the beginning, it's funny to point out that again the TARDIS is the TARDIS has a mind of its own, and we see the Doctor just again okay, it happens, it keeps happening, and the companions are going with it. But if we start, I think with the bigger moments from the beginning, it's obviously immediately the I'm not sure what they called it. Was it a dunking?
Yeah.
And
first she's bobbing for apples.
Well, which was adorable.
Oh my
so
god!
adorable.
I was like, I love bobbing for apples. Apples. Okay, sorry. I just love it. Sorry, that's a meme.
But the whole scene with the dilemma and the dunking and what were they going to do? What was their course of action? What was the choice of the amount of I guess free will they had in that moment to choose the course of action that would affect history.
You mean all of them? When they first arrive, and the very first thing she says to them is what? You know, be careful, because what we can do can change the course of history.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, just stand back and observe, and don't forget, you can't do anything but observe. And then the next thing you know, what does she do?
Yeah. That was kind of a point where I was kind of like, really? I was like, all right, we've seen this already twice. Yes, you're rebellious. I get it. Yeah. I was kind of iffy about that part. I was like, all right. I think that's the moment where I started like, all right, this is all right. Let's go. Let's move forward.
Didn't anyone else in the darn village question why Becca was dunking her own grandmother?
No.
Did you notice that? Nobody. Everybody's like, yeah,
that's not a thing.
Let's potty because we're just dunking the grandmother who is the healer. And why did you say that she's a witch again?
Well, it seemed to me as if you were to question anything, you were.
You were exactly. You were suspect.
Yeah, so if you didn't cheer or do anything. I mean, that's the same thing as the witch trials here in the States. I mean, they're just basically picking on the people that were least popular and people that were outcasts in the village, and that's all they did.
Well, that's historically speaking, as we were discussing earlier, these trials began in the 1300s and ran all the way to the 1700s. Yeah. And this episode takes place in the 1560s or something like this. Kind of drawing in the timeline for King James when the Pope. It's a long story, but this whole thing about the persecution of witches as the beings who are the hand servants of Satan, and Satanism being a way for the clergy and for the papacy to be able to maintain sectarianism and authority over the people, because that's really what it was about. And the show does a really good job representing that. You know what I'm saying?
Let's go into King James a little bit as an actual historical figure. I love the fact that they tackled this subject and the fact that they chose the actor that they did for the character, because I couldn't have imagined anybody better for it. But I love that a lot of our historical figures that we're getting this season are very controversial figures, very very much figures that stand out in history as altering history. And this is the one time where I'm like, yikes, this is the man that altered history for a while there. And
technically all of life, all of times to now, because the Bible. So
that's the King James Bible. Everybody uses that. That's him. That's the man that started that Bible that's been used as both a tool for persecution and a tool for torture for many years. And I think that his amalgamation that he did of Christianity and paganism, mixing the two religions together and kind of coming up with this new version of Christianity, which is what he did. And it's very fascinating when you see where the roots came from being explored in Doctor Who.
It is the beginning of the persecutory Christianity, the way that we know it today, because up until that time, Christianity was gentle and kind and accepting, because that's what we had been taught in the Beatitudes. But when, as you see, Alan Cummings plays a King James who's a fanatic, and he's a fanatic because of his own fears and his feelings of loss of confidence and his feelings of abandonment, which is the truth, right? Because he's talking about his mom, and then how much he, for his entire life, feared for his life. And so he had to become this very hard shell of a being. And that shell that he used to protect himself was his faith, quote unquote, right?
Yep.
And that faith, in helping him survive through insurmountable odds, as King James says, wow, it must have been amazing. It must have been blessed. There was a reason he was chosen. So he personifies his his journey and the struggle of his path and his ability to stay alive, and then he puts it into this new form of faith, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
which
And
is persecutory.
yeah, extremely. And even the doctor mentions it at one point. Oh, this is 2.0. He's like,
Yep, remember in the room?
yep,
Oh
that
God.
was great.
It's like, what? We're going there. This is crazy.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That's honestly when I kind of honed in a little bit more and I started really focusing in on the episode. I was like, all right, we're going there. Let's do this.
Didn't you love King James going? Becca is like, oh, okay, you're the Grand Inquisitor, because that's what I couldn't help but calling that person the Grand Inquisitor. Okay,
Yeah, right.
mashing up some Star Wars. And then King James is like, oh yeah, no, he's the Grand Inquisitor because he's a guy, and he's like, you couldn't be because you're just a woman. Oh yeah, remember? And Ryan was like, oh no, but you know we have her in this role because she has skills. And he was like, oh yeah, so you use your cunning and deception and the ability to gossip.
Gossip.
I was like, oh Jesus, I cannot believe that the doctor held a tongue.
Oh, but her comment right when she leaves the room is brilliant. She's just like, not only do we have to suffer what do you call it, torture, but we have to suffer what was the exact word that she used that was just great.
What was it?
Verbiage. Oh my gosh. I forgot the term that she used, but it was just great, the term that she used. Basically being patronized. And oh my god, that was just brilliant, and that made me chuckle a lot, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember if she used the word.
She did when she was walking out. She said something. I can't think of it now.
Patronizing or something like that. I
It
think
was basically patronizing. I didn't write it down because I was trying to. One of the reasons I was going back, like I was, is because I was trying to capture the quotes.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many in this episode. There honestly was, and I thought it was interesting. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, it was. I'm just trying to think, where do we go after they meet King James and she has to step back because societally she's in this new role. But yeah, at this point everyone's still listening to her to some extent.
I think they go upstairs to the room, they find the axe.
Yeah.
And then they start questioning, oh, what is this woman's actual intentions? They're trying to figure out what are her intentions on this and where is she going with this? Why is she doing this?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I guess this is where, we're like, at this point, we're just believing that Becca is this, woman who's a widow, and why is she persecuting everyone? And we don't understand it. Is it because she has faith and she believes in that? And so you look how everyone is dealing with her, with Becca, based on like the perspective they have of her and her personality and her societal status, right?
Yep.
And then you see that change. And she allows it. She allows it to keep going forward, and she allows the doctor to work with her until the doctor challenges her, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then it's time to go ahead and do what? Challenge,
Yeah, challenge her right back. Yeah.
Challenge her right back. And because Becca has a status or a title, her word is always going to be stronger than anyone else's, and of course she finds a way to turn it around. So then of course the king believes in that.
Yep.
So that's just like whatever. Oh my god, this is where I'm telling you the story points are like blah.
Yeah, I mean the episode, it had its moments that were fun. This is a fun episode. Don't go into it expecting what we've had in the first episodes, because honestly this is the weakest one we've had so far, but it's still enjoyable. It's still a fun journey. It's still very interesting to see the King James character being flushed out, and the interactions between Ryan and the doctor. So yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up for me on this episode. I don't know if you guys had any other points that you wanted to hit.
Well, I mean, I had some really very strong favorite quotes that, I understand that that there has to be, it's Doctor Who, right? So there's always going to be some kind of social reference.
Yeah.
And some kind of hierarchical reference, because it happens from the beginning forever of Doctor Who. It's what happens. It was very strong in Tennant that there would be episodes where everything has a historical overview, and we're looking at like what could we have done differently. Because you knew that the Doctor's not going to change King James's mind. That can't happen because that's not how it went.
Yeah.
But she could have tried. She tried. In the middle of all that, she tried. I was saying that I thought that the villain, who we haven't even talked about to this day, to this second, are these alien beings who have been imprisoned in that tree for, what is it, billions of years at this point?
Yeah. It's just they came and went, and it kind of didn't make any impact. I think it might link up later on with the whole story arc that they're doing in the end. If they do that, I think that might be why they're like leaving all these loose ends type of thing. I don't know. I don't see where they're going with it with this villain. I really don't. And unless they tie it up in the last two episodes or in the New Year's episode, I don't think they had any impact. And that's kind of sad, because I would like to see more of, learn more about these characters,
Yeah, I really was interested to get a better overview other than these big old tendrils sticking out everywhere. I was like, eh.
Yeah, it was a very, just, again, like we said, I mean, the writing was one thing, but directing definitely another thing. There were definitely moments here and there that definitely should have been different, or could have been different and gone, well, with a completely different intention of scene.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's interesting. There's a really strong throwback philosophy with this episode. If you think back to classic Who, it's a story of alien science mistaken for magic. And how the Doctor, in this episode, in the very end, the Doctor is citing Clarke's third law in the final moments,
Yep.
And we're like, okay, it's not like it doesn't come, there is a running theme of that there's a science behind everything. If you notice, how our show, the science behind Brainstein, I keep thinking, gosh, the writers are really doing justice to our philosophy that the science is behind everything. And I was waiting for this episode to find that, to get that. Yeah, I like it. So that's very refreshing that's actually another running theme. Woohoo, I'm going to have to start chalking up all the themes I'm finding, okay?
Yeah, we'll start doing in-depth once we're able to see the whole the stories throughout the different episodes in the season. And then, we'll be able to binge watch the whole season straight through. And you'll the great thing about binge watching is that you catch some of the things that you miss because you have to wait a week, and you forget the little minutia details that occur the week before. And when you binge watch something, you start seeing all these storylines kind of mesh together well. And I'm excited to see how this story does that.
I think it does. I think it's going to, because if you, I like one of the points I was making quickly was that Clarke's third law says that any sufficiently advanced technology is nearly indistinguishable from magic. And I'm finding that every episode actually has that as a constant in it. So I feel like that's kind of cool, because that's up to us as the viewer to decide if, because the Doctor's always talking about the impossible being probable.
Yes.
Have you noticed that?
Yes.
That's also Clarke's first law. So I'm like, literally, I feel like it's all going to come together at some point.
I think so too.
Yeah, I really do. I wanted to be horrified by these aliens, and I wasn't. I was put off by them, because I was like, you're annoying me. You didn't make sense in this story. You're annoying me. I was more horrified by what happened to the grandmother Twisted, and Becca going, "Hey, if she drowns, she's not a witch. If she survives, she is." I'm like, what the heck kind of philosophy is that? I mean, what is that? And then if she survives, we'll just hang her because then she really is a witch. So the horror behind that is the fact that they didn't just write that for nothing, Lewis. That's really what happened. Ugh.
Yeah, I
Think
know.
about that. 30 to 60,000 people in that span of how many years were killed, and 75% were women. Why? Because women were easily persecuted. This was a way for people to get rid of them. And
Yep.
guess what? This story proves that point, because that's what Becca does. 36 people so that she can survive.
Yep.
Isn't that unreal? It's just
Yeah.
unreal to me.
It really is.
It is.
It's
So,
horrifying, honestly.
Also, just so you know, this is the first episode of the season to be both written and directed by women. So Joy Wilkinson and Sally Ibrahimian, actually. And so basically, I was wondering about that running fundamental story arc about sexism.
Yeah.
That everyone is going through, because it's a hierarchical sexism, and I kind of wondering if maybe that's something that the two of them, or it was a Chibnall who thought that they would, put that in as a theme as well. Especially when the doctor says what? Remember when they accuse her? And what does the doctor say?
I don't remember what the doctor says on that one.
Honestly, if I were still a bloke, I could get on with the job and not have the time to waste time defending myself.
Yeah. That was the whole message of the episode, and I mean, I thought that it was executed brilliantly in a way that it wasn't being preachy in any way, like a lot of people would have thought that it would be. When the doctor, I know a lot of people had speculation that with this doctor being female, is she going to have to basically justify herself as a woman, and is it going to come up that she used to be a man before and all that stuff? And people were worried how she was going to actually react to that. And honestly, Jodie Whittaker did a great job with it. I think that it works naturally, and it works in a way that's realistic. I mean, as realistic as switching from a woman to a man, not only just, it works for the Time Lord. it really does. So.
But, and it's so interesting that we're dealing with that, that undercurrent of sexism, which keeps popping up, it does in all the episodes a little bit. But then at the same time, the doctor doesn't give in to that, It could be an angsty doctor going, "Oh, but why do you do that? Why do you persecute me?" And it's not what happens. Jodie's like, whatever. Let me just work around it for now, because I don't care what you have to say anyway. And I'm like, cool. I like that because
she takes it in strides.
She just totally takes it in stride, and it's a very strong way for a person who's facing that to be able to say, well, hey, my strength is in my strength. So, and I love that. And then, like you said, oh my God, the entire world loves King James's crush on Ryan. I'm sorry, I just had to say that. And how well Tosin handles it is ridiculous. Oh my God.
Seriously. I really thought that was probably one of the best parts too. It really does. So overall for me, highlights of the episode was Alan Cummings and what do you call it, the Ryan interaction, and also King James with the Doctor. Just those two combinations that made the whole episode for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also, I'm not, maybe you didn't, maybe it wasn't as focused on, but really truly Alan Cummings playing this very damaged being, this abandoned and sad being, who has to struggle his whole existence to find an identity when, as he said, he was being persecuted, he was being pursued and plotted against his whole entire existence. And he comes to a point when he's like, well, I have to have been blessed or chosen because I survived all of that. And so therefore I am now going to take the gravitas of my largesse, and I am going to make a change in the world because I believe that the God has chosen me for this.
Yeah.
So I don't want to not, give credence to that part of the storyline, because that's a very important thing. That is a damaged and a persecuted man who has lived a lonely life, who was abandoned by his mother, as we talk about it. Is he then going to want to be, is that character, is that person going to want to be someone who then takes on a larger than life role? And in this case, if that's what he's representing, Alan Cummings is praying as King James, who then literally is the founder of Christianity the way that we know it now, because of the new rewriting of the language and the rewriting of the clergy and the papacy and everything else that that comes with it. Then I guess he was successful, right?
Yeah,
in creating a new society, because that King James Bible became the foundation for our language the way we know it, for our form of speech the way that we know it, and for our for our hierarchical system of people, looking at people at different layers or different levels in society. So it's just really interesting to me. I saw all of that as I went through it. So yet I don't think it's the best episode, but yet there was so much to it still. Can you imagine how good these episodes have been?
Yeah. I mean, overall, like for my ratings, my normal rating system, I give this one a 5 out of 10, just because it honestly didn't have that impact on me like it did for you, Nisha.
I think it's because I'm also looking at the impact that and the influence of a story about society applying pressures to women to conform and out of fear. So that's a very important story. You have to really, look at that point. And then oftentimes why another woman in society would persecute another one in order to be able to maintain their status. And then, that's historically accurate. So what I thought was, now we've reached at least the third episode where there's some historical accuracy, but of course it's greater, it's sci-fi, so of course it's not true. But, I do appreciate it. I really do. And I do appreciate Yaz being triggered by her time of being bullied by Izzy Flint, and the whole class turning against her, and how she's telling Willa, hey, you don't need to let that happen to you. You need to stand tall. You need to believe in your own makeup. You need to believe in the wonder of being you. And don't give in to the hysteria. But she does eventually, because that's what society does when you're fearing for your own sanity. Sometimes
you fall into the herd mentality and you become a sheep. Yeah, which
is what we started with. So the Doctor has a really amazing poetic line that pretty much sums up the entire season so far. It's, we want certainty, security, to believe that people are evil or heroic, but that's not how people are. You want to know the secrets of existence? Start with the mysteries of the heart. That can show you everything. If you stop being afraid of what you don't understand. I mean, it really is. I thought it was extremely grounding to hear that, because isn't that the philosophy we have to live with every day of our life anyway?
Oh yeah, like this was a perfect moment where the Doctor could really shine into her own and really show what it is to be a strong woman in a time where it's basically shunned upon, even though there's so many strong women in that time frame, in that time period, and so many independent women at that time. They get kind of overlooked in the history books, but there are strong women. I mean, we saw it in Doctor Who. We've seen these strong women being portrayed. I mean, Madame the Pompadour. I mean, that was, I mean, that was in the era of time where machismo was at its prime, and especially in France. I mean, that was one of the worst. England and France were like probably the worst when it came to the machismo, and the fact that these women, and it goes back to modern society nowadays. Let's be real. The maternal figure is the one that runs the household. They keep, and I don't mean that to be in a sexist way at all. I mean that they are the teachers, they are the nurturers, they are the ones that actually educate. Even the husband is educated by the maternal figure. And that's the great thing about a relationship, is that it works like that. You're able to learn from both from each other. And that kind of maternal figure is important. It's crucial. I mean, if it wasn't for that, then we'd still be in caves.
Well, I think, no, of course. And that is, again, another philosophy. I think you and I sat and had this discussion, that I felt that there was the Doctor and the companions are nurturers. Every one of them. They're caregivers and nurturers. And it's not always that case, because they're each confident and they're all skilled and they're all talented in their own right. Yeah. And whether they believe in themselves or not, they all have a right to be there. Can you see it? Because the writing allows each of them to have their own story arcs.
Yeah, I kept thinking the whole time in this episode, Ryan felt so like easygoing, so at ease, that it's such a difference from when you look back at the characterization from the beginning. And I think it's obviously it's purposefully done, but it's really interesting to actually have to come off of how many seasons of where that overlying story arc is dependent on this one companion, and it's nice. It's refreshing.
It is. What do you think that the main points of the story were? Because we're just wrapping up right now. Joe? Lewis and I both already gave our
honestly, I think it really is falling in line with the rest of the season, in that we're looking at, kindness and what's the word? Kind of not being a part of the
not being part of the herd, right, exactly.
Yeah. And I just absolutely love seeing the Doctor herself be so passionate about humanity and about just being ethical. It's really wonderful.
Yep, I agree 100%. So yeah, that's a wrap up for Doctor Who in review this week.
Yeah.
I thought we had a great episode today. I honestly, the conversation was good, and honestly, we learned something, because Nisha brought something very interesting to the table that I don't think I didn't see it at all, and I'm glad she brought it up, because it kind of changes the point of view on the episode. And I think that's what we strive to do here with Diversely Geek and Man Bites Media working together, where we're bringing two different sides of the coin and kind of flipping everything upside down and seeing things from a completely different point of view. And that's our goal here. So I hope everybody enjoyed. And thank you, Joe, for joining us on this episode. Nisha, thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you.
And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Doctor Who in Review.
Have a great week.